Fala once again. I'm a big wig. Yeah. Let me dey run things up.
Hello and welcome to BIGWIG. BIGWIG is a series that examines the life of lawyers who are not into litigation. Lawyers that have made a name for themselves in the niche area of the law that they have excelled in.
I look at society as the main reason, not an excuse, for where many things are in Nigeria today. If people are not working hard for a living in an environment, it is not going to be just the lawyer. It's also going to be the doctor. It's going to be the engineer. It's going to be the television person. Because it is an ethos that passes from one person to another inside a community environment.
Playing in my own league. Yeah. Can't even notice. Run down the moves, I got this. I love it.
Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the BIGWIG. Our BIGWIG today is Soji Awogbade. He's been described as a lawyer with over 4 decades of active legal experience in project finance, oil and gas, investment and securities, environmental and company law. Ladies and gentlemen, a true bigwig in every sense of the word, Soji Awogbade.
No jokes, please. Oh.
So, this was something you just slipped into naturally? Was it ever in the horizon at all, law?
Okay. I don't know whether you will believe this. Growing up at that time, you just woke up and did things. I've always been in the speech arts area. Mm-hmm. I did it in primary school. I did it in secondary school. I started acting from the age of 7. The first role I played was a millionaire.
Oh, so you've been rehearsing for that for a long time.
No, that didn't prepare me for anything. In my time in secondary school, there was an annual competition among schools in Western region, run by the WMBS. Did a radio competition for broadcasting round schools. You know who won? Erastus Akingola won in my year.
Oh, the banker.
The banker. He won in my year. We were in Form 4, I believe. That was secondary school. Then I went to university at Ife. And they ran the first inter-universities debate. I don't know whether they still do it now. Along with the Nuga Games. And the maiden one was at Nsukka. And I had the pleasure of receiving the trophy from Professor Kodilinyi, who was the vice chancellor at the time.
So when you went to Ife, was it to study law from initial? Oh,
no.
Okay. So at what time did you switch from? I mean, because it was like your trajectory was going to be more like my area.
Okay. Yes, I was going to an American university to study communication arts.
Okay.
Just at the nick of time, I got admission to the University of Ife. In fact, I didn't understand how my application to Ife, which was for English, became admission to the Faculty of Law. Between my dad and the professor of law, Professor Law, may still rest in peace, they did the magic. And my father studied law in England, but never practiced for one day. He came back, became an administrator. The closest person in the legal profession to me was a judge, and I didn't know what they did. The only thing I can tell you, though, one big story. I went to the office to see my dad one day. The courts are right next door to the administrative buildings, and proceedings were going on. And reportedly, a particular witness was in the courtroom, an inveterate smoker, and somehow he struck and lit. It was not in the box. It was in the well of the court, waiting for their case to be called. He struck and lit a cigarette. And the orderly of the judge must have looked up, who is that? And instantly, the cigarette disappeared. What do you think it did? It swallowed the damn thing.
Oh my goodness.
That was how fearful of judges people were in those days.
They used to arrest masquerade.
Their foreground is the only lawns nobody crossed.
That's right.
You couldn't be seen crossing the lawn in front of a court. How would you do that? Now I see all sorts of things. That's fun.
That's story for another day. now that we're in it, it's instructive that your father read law, but he became an administrator. Did he ever do any form of transactional? Yes.
Never. The only good news in that bit was that I used his books for my first few years at IFE, because he brought all the treaty on contracts and all the other books, regular books, and he brought them back. So when I told him, I have to buy books, no, excuse me, I've got books. I do not think that he ever thought that he would practice law. Now, don't forget that in that generation, when people qualified in law in the UK, they actually were not in formal law schools. So they did all sorts of things, and then they went for a program that made them lawyers. So it was not automatic that someone who read law in England, Chief Awolowo read Bachelor of Commerce. That's what he did. And he went to the Inns and became a lawyer. So, which speaks to the American system, which says you must have one degree before you come and read law. I think it all works for the same results.
What was your first, after graduation and being called to the bar, where did you first work?
I shot straight to Sokoto.
Wow.
Which was northwest Nigeria at the time. That's another story.
That's far from home. Tell us
Very
about
far. Okay. So this posting is done by the National Youth Service Corps people. And we never really cared where we got posted.
I said about you, so yeah, I know.
We never really cared where we got posted. When they said Sokoto, I said, cool it, I'm not going to Sokoto, that's for sure. So I went to see an older person who said, of course, nobody goes to Sokoto. We're going to change it. So we are going to change it. Who's the we? I gave the baton to him. Run with it, let's see how far you get. Then he comes back and says, no, we have to go and get one of our uncles. My uncle had his office in Western House there. So I went there and said, sir, look I've done my work, my bit. I cannot now go and work in Sokoto. What is there in Sokoto? So the man said, we want to know what is Sokoto. Then you have to go to
Sokoto. Go there and find out.
So I parceled off. I go to Sokoto. I arrive in the hottest temperature I've ever seen in my life. As we descend from the gangway onto the tarmac, I said, no, I'm not going to spend a week here. It was stifling heat. But it was dry. It's not humid like Lagos. So I saw, it was like the rustics. I mean, Lagos compared to Sokoto is like the rustics. There are very few cars on the roads. Very few. I did it. I did 1 year. And I almost did not come back from Sokoto.
Why is that, sir?
When I advise people about prospects, about their future, I always tell them there's something called the unknown. It is a ball. It has good as well as not so good in it. So if you always want to deal with the known, your life is predictable. There will be no surprises. And please don't expect the upsides as well. When I got to Sokoto, the Ministry of Justice was almost totally reliant on youth corpers for their prosecution. That's how deep end, fresh lawyer, deep end, they gave files to you, you went to Brenin Kebi, you went to Argungu, you went all over the place, prosecuting cases. That was where I prosecuted my first rape case. Homosexual rape. Very sad story. Very handsome man. Drove all the way from Kano to come and rape a young boy in Sokoto. So I took the file with a lot of venom in me because the facts were gory. And when I saw the accused person, one of the most handsome pieces of humanity that you could imagine. But you did it to the boy and gave him six bales of cloth or something like that in compensation. And it was all nasty. It ended up in hospital and all that. So Sokoto was where I first prosecuted another human being under the criminal law, under the penal code, not the criminal.
Yes.
So, life started there, and we got so enmeshed in the Ministry of Justice that 2 of us stayed behind and established their offices there. But Lagos boy didn't want to do that. I wanted to come back to Lagos. In fact, I came back to Lagos to go on holiday, as we normally do in the summer. And I refused to go back. There are people who will never forgive me. Alhaji Shehu Shagari was one of them. Ibrahim Dasuki is another one of them. Because I was inside their families all of that time. So, but life goes on.
So when you got to Lagos, did you still litigate, or how did your
so that was so that was 78, right? Okay, in 1978, the legal profession was actually at a real turning point. What was happening was the economy was expanding then. We were beginning to do transactions. Not I go to the bank, I borrow money, and this is my house. We're beginning to do debentures, we're beginning to do stuff like that. And I was lucky. The uncle that insisted I should go to Sokoto, himself a Queen's Counsel, an SAN, had a chambers for me to just walk into. So in there was when I first saw that there are some lawyers who don't go to court. I see. What do these guys do? Are they not favored? Because what you wanted to become in those days was cock of the bar. You wanted to be known as the man who won all the cases.
Yes,
And,
the law.
The law and all that. And life was not geared for in-house tasks and things like that. People went there, but there were very significant numbers. So I just made that observation. But still, the court was burning in me because I like to go to court. I enjoyed going to court until I stopped going.
When did you stop? When you probed further to see why those lawyers didn't go to court, you liked what they did? Or?
I got to the highest level I could. And what actually made me stop was a symbolic case that I did. I spent 8 weeks, Monday after Monday for 8 weeks, trying to argue an interlocutory application. Why did that happen? Because we were full, lists were bad. And then we had started to get power failure. So judges were sitting with candlelight. And they were just overwhelmed. And there was no influx of new judges. So the lists were crazy. And that was exacerbated by our seniors, who had the right of mention. So you are a
You had to wait your turn.
6-year-old boy, you are number 23 in the list. Sorry, that's it.
By the time they're in number 5 or so, the days
Life is gone. So you are tired, you are hungry, and so even if you got called, you did not perform at your optimal levels. That 8-week ordeal that I went through was before a judge who actually loved me. The manner of judges in those days was like, Mr. X is standing up and addressing the judge. The judge said, "But Mr. Awogbade, do you agree with what you say?" That was the way it was. It was like interactive. Because they wanted to do justice. It was a real bench of people who wanted to do justice. And you couldn't hear of malpractices. You couldn't.
It was not even an option.
We didn't see them after hours. We didn't. Perhaps if you were lucky, you met them in church, and they pretended not to know you. "Hello, sir. Hello, my lord." I say, "Oh yeah, hello. How are you?" And he moves on. I was no. There was none of that. So life was different. If we could have cured the supply side of it, it would have been livable. I would personally have gone on. But it was just getting steadily worse. And I look back, it was getting even worse. And then we had all the other new Nigerian things that came into it. That you couldn't predict the results of what you put in front of judges, and all that, and all that, and all that, and all that. Because the pride of the day was you could tell your client, I think we're 80% there. The judge may not like this, may not like that, but I think we got it. we need to put in 6 documents or 6 witnesses. We put in 5. And they've stood up. So we should be okay. And your client would go
Can't
and
even see.
yeah. You'll go and you say, oh yes. So the times when things went on appeal, you could tell that it was borderline. The judge had a place to rest his own prejudice, if it was. But nothing naked, nothing brazen, nothing that nobody was waiting for, expecting. Then, of course, you can also say that the stakes are not usually very high. So, for God's sakes, land cases were reputed to be long. It took forever. Criminal cases went well. But, with civil matters, which is where my province was, with civil matters, justice was not being dispensed quickly enough to be just. People, this interlocutory application I was asking to argue was about a stop order on an account. How do you stop all the accounts of a manufacturing company for over 6 months?
You're killing it.
Dead.
That's right.
And that steadily filters back into the system because everybody has their ancillaries. People who buy from them, people who sell to them, they are withering. So I found it difficult to understand why we were not advancing justice at the rate at which those we copied it from were doing. So we didn't have specialized courts, we didn't have specialized judges. It was tedious to go through the system. The filing system was even more awkward and archaic. You could file a document and I could pull it out.
Was this the journey to AELEX or?
No, the journey to AELEX is a much longer one. The journey to AELEX. Look, my life has been very charmed. I promise you. I then decided enough, so I started my own firm and got together a bunch of boys. 2 of them became attorneys general in their states eventually, and we were pounding the streets. What did you do? The whole of Lagos, the commerce of Lagos for lawyers was Broad Street.
Yeah.
It was not outside of Broad Street.
That's
Just walk that road, and you can collect ₦1 million in one day. So all the UPAs and all of them were there. And I had mastered that at my first firm. So we got ourselves acquainted with the commercial houses, who invariably were either banks or non-bank finance institutions, or the NIDBs of this world, the insurance companies, and all of that. And we made a living out of that. And I did that in one configuration or the other until it became clear to me that transactions that were coming onto the scene required larger scales, larger firms, and more concentration, more attention to the issues. What was it? Most corporate clients cannot wait for a lawyer who's gone to court and is coming back at 4 p.m. That's not their working day.
Resume.
So basically, they could not shop on both sides of the street unless they really had no choice. So there was that column for us who wanted to do corporate work. Now, you either do corporate or you do commercial.
So you couldn't do both at the time?
No. I mean, what I'm saying is you found your territory, usually positioning where you think your chances are better. If you have been with the manufacturing houses, the PZs, and the Nestle's of this world, you parked your car there. If you have been with the banks and the finance people, you parked your car there. So I decided that I would do Broad Street and no more. The waters, they mix. Because when you're doing this, you're meeting new clients and, they mix. So you now started having specialisms inside even these small firms. So there'll be people who did just insurance, there'll be people who did just banking, and people who just energy. That's when I saw that there was scope. for growth here. Oh, of course, the Ogumbanjos of this world had already blazed that trail successfully. So it's not rocket science. So first, you had to put yourself in prestigious locations so that when they come to meetings, they will be comfortable. Barristers don't worry about that. Wherever they find, they sit. You also had to hire a slightly different class of support staff. People who are very happy with IT. Because now you're doing documents.
Yes.
You're doing documents. So it was not that it was easy to do because there was competition as well. By this time, there was a community of lawyers who had found a slightly different way to practice the profession. And I keep saying to people, it's not about making a choice really, because we still have people who play both sides of the road. Maybe not as effectively, but still they exist. So when you make that choice, you're making one, a personal choice, secondly, a financial choice.
What was the name of the first law firm that you formed with your...
Soji Awogbade and Co, of course.
Okay, so is that what metamorphosed into AELEX?
No, I then did something that nobody would do on earth. One of my journeys on Broad Street, I ran into an older friend of mine who said, Soji, I've been looking for you. I said, I'm here. He says, let's have a chat. So Sunday afternoon, sits me down in his house and says, I have just acquired a law firm. I said, excuse me? Yes, I have just acquired the oldest law firm in Nigeria. I said, excuse me.
Calm down.
He gave me the story, and it turned out to be true. Irving and Bonner had just been acquired. And he asked me, would you like to be managing partner of Irving and Bonner? I said, who would not like that? So I carried all of my Soji Awogbade and Co, took it to Irving and Bonner and sat in the chair for 9 years as managing partner.
Oh wow. You've really lived the charm. You said you did say it.
I took a major risk there because I was too enamored of what Irving and Bonner was to law, especially.
So at that time it was the oldest.
Established 1917.
Oh wow.
And it was a farm led by Scots and Englishmen. So they were beginning to peter out. But I met the last managing partner there, Angus Ferguson, who made a major impact on my life. I will never forget that. A major impact on my life. A transactional lawyer of the highest caliber. He was impeccable. May his soul rest in peace. So I did that for 9 years, and 40 boys or 20 boys will not play for 20 years.
Different people must find different.
Yeah, I exited.
That's a Yoruba proverb, right?
Yes. So I exited and did one or two other things, and then we decided AELEX has to be. What is the meaning of this AELEX thing? The meaning of this AELEX thing is we found that transactions in Nigeria were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What we did was to combine. So I will call Basi, let's go and bid for this together because you have this track, I have the other track. And increasingly, clients were finding it difficult to handle a single transaction being run from 4 different offices. In fact, we went for a pitch once, the NNPC. And the NNPC says, well, but Mr. Awogbade, you are this, and Mr. So-and-so, you are that. Mr. So-and-so, you are also that. 3 law firms, how do we work with you? It's going to be disjointed. So, no, I'm in charge. You say, yeah, we know you're in charge, but still, the skill sets that we need, you don't have all of them yourself. 2 of us came out of that bid, and we said, we must form. After all, when I was at Irving and Bonner, Coward Chance, which is now called Clifford Chance, didn't have more than 60 lawyers. Now they must have 2,000 lawyers. So things must go on, things must move, things must improve, boundaries must change. When we decided that AELEX was possible, there were 12 firms that were talking. And eventually, only 4 of us finished at the line. And looking back, not bad at all. Now, what that achieved on day one was specialisms coming from at least 7 channels, because each of them had more than one partner. So we had very strong corporate skills coming from different, and we then had a full barrister practice with an SCN on top of it. That made us law firm of the year 5 years in a row, or something like that.
Yes, I was looking at the.
Yeah, it was quite a feat, but it speaks to what needs to go in to our side of business. Now, as a barrister, you can be a lone star and just be shining. Just keep on shining. But as a solicitor, you have to have those skill sets in a row, like your dogs. Yeah, you have to have them in a row before you can actually become the law firm that people want to talk about.
When you look back with the skill sets of lawyers at that time and now, well, as an employer of younger lawyers, is there a major difference between the quality of lawyers then and now?
I find that question difficult to answer, because in the course of my career, I've worked with so many young people who have really done well. Oh, most of them have their own offices, standing up today, big offices. So I'm not one of those who sing the chorus of skills have dropped. No. I look at society as the main reason, not an excuse, for where many things are in Nigeria today. So if people are not working hard for a living in an environment, it is not going to be just the lawyer. It's also going to be the doctor. It's going to be the engineer. It's going to be the television person. Because it is an ethos that passes from one person to another inside a community environment. So I find life just mimics, or rather, professionals mimic what life is. And to the extent that you're talking about talent, there is talent. There is always talent. There are brains, there are good minds. It is just that they have probably grown up in an environment where they say, oh, it doesn't count, oh, it doesn't matter. You know, there's one word that Nigerians should outlaw. It's the word called sorry. People are prepared to say sorry even before they have committed the act.
Yes.
So, sorry. A man is looking at you, barges into you, sorry. You know, sorry, what does that mean to you? It is here, sorry. Now, we have become like that because the standards have fallen, and so nobody can demand the old standard. So you are looking for the old standard. When you ask me now to compare, you're looking for the old standard because back in the day, it was not as if they were draconian or stern. Our masters knew what they would expect, and we know what they were expecting. So we had to deliver it. And remarkably, they did not hesitate to sack you.
It wasn't something that, that you can emotionally blackmail them.
No, they didn't hesitate to sack. Even if they were your uncle, you will get that stick and you will go. So what I am seeing among my younger people is that they are either not prepared mentally or emotionally for the rigors of legal practice, and it is rigorous. It's not a lazy man's job. They are either not prepared for it, or they think they can get away with not doing it properly. It's in between that.
When you employ in AELEX, what do you find them wanting to do more? Is it more litigation, or is more transactional, or it's balanced?
There are 2 levels of employment. Entry level, you have no choice. It is not your call.
You do everything.
You have to do every and anything.
Okay.
So really, entry level don't get a choice. It is when we have lateral hires, i.e. we're looking to fill a vacancy in our banking practice or in our energy practice, it is then that we go and tap that resource and put it in. And we know that that's... But even then, specialisms in law are not exclusive of the discipline of law. So what we say to one another is, excuse me, if it was Soji Awogbade and Co, would I be looking for a specialist? I would do it. So the principles of law wash right through. That's number one. The basic story behind each sector is perhaps not so dissimilar to that in another sector. So many people, every average lawyer, should be able to read that file and make sense out of it. Now, when you now get to, you want to trade that file against an adversary or an opponent or a colleague, then your specialism has to come out. But to be able to say, oh, this is good or this is bad, this is okay or this is not okay. Most people with the training and in a good set should have those skill sets to deal with it. So it is not that quality has fallen. I don't agree that quality has fallen. I think it is one, mentorship is lower because there is a distraction even at the leadership. A bit of Nigeria has flown into the subject, so that people are frustrated with the results they are getting from the work they are doing. So it's like that. It's a sociological issue.
It's a bit more convoluted than the name Chris Ogbonjo comes up a lot. You know, I've spoken to other bigwigs and some of them came through. But you didn't. Did you ever at any point
go to Chris Ogbonjo?
Yes.
No, I made a studious effort not to cross that portal.
Why is that?
Very, very simple. When I started at Fanika Asue, we were their leaders.
Okay.
And we looked down on solicitors firms. So I just had no affinity for the firm. But everybody in the firm I knew. Because it was a small bar then. Tokunbo Thomas was a proper solicitor. He hardly ever went to court. And he led that set after Chief Tokunbo Thomas. Well, Chief, I forgot this gentleman was also there. But Tokunbo Thomas was one of the people that we envied at the bar. So going to Fanika Ariashua already disqualified me to go to Chris Ogbonjo. But I knew everybody there, everybody.
A lot of solicitors, you know, they think that there should be a reward system like SAN. And some barristers will say the monies they make is enough reward for them. But, you know, you argued the point, you made the point that, you know, the skill set that is required is also very high. And in terms of legal evaluation, you know, a solicitor should be able to get whatever accolades that a barrister is getting if he's performing at the highest.
I don't agree.
Oh, okay.
I don't agree. I don't agree with those titles being required or equivalent. If you look at the system we copied from, and I'm not tying myself to it, worldwide, it is barristers who need all those titles. So it's just really never need them. The recognition is so different. We, for instance, we are the ones who bid for work. They don't bid for work. Barristers don't bid for work. Somebody just says, I like you, I think you can do this well. That's the choice that they make. We go to beauty parades. We do glossy presentations to say,
right.
These are my skill sets, these are the things I have done, this is what I think your matter is about, and this is how I'm going to deal with it. So I think we trade in slightly different markets. And I have never seen internationally that people on our side of the road covet the titles that the others have. So I don't miss it personally. It doesn't reduce my self-esteem that I am not an SAN. In fact, I frequently have to correct Yoruba people who pray for me.
To get us
To get SAN. I said, well, I've been doing this job for 40-something years. I just pray SAN for me now. Should I pay without
because the whole thing is skewed towards barristers. Do you think that our law education should separate like England, or it's still better to have the combined?
No, the fused profession is the model that is more worldwide, more global. For the reason that I've said, these things are not in such compartments. I can, honestly, if I can sit down and read procedural rules and things like that, I can wear my gown tomorrow.
Tomorrow, that's right.
So really, it's not that difficult to make that transition. So I would say that we should remain a fused profession, and looking at developments all over the world, you will find that even the adversarial system of adjudication of law is
yes.
They have given way very visibly from the rigid court rule system to the arbitration system. So it is getting so vibrant, it's not funny. Now, there are all sorts of other types of things people like me can do. We can do mediation, we can do all sorts of practices which all conduce to the ends of justice, but without looking for a title for it. I think we should continue as a fused profession, honestly.
Okay. I know you are big in the oil and gas. When did that chapter in your life
The
start?
oil and gas bit? Purely by accident. I was at Narita Airport in Tokyo, in Japan. And sitting next to me was a Korean. And I was the only black man there. And the guy says to me, are you American? I said, no, I'm not American. So you are from Africa? I said, yes, I'm from Africa. Are you from Kenya? I said, no, I'm not from Kenya. I'm from Nigeria. He says, you are from Nigeria? I am going to Nigeria.
Okay.
I said, on this trip? He says, yes, I'm going to Nigeria. I said, what brings you to Nigeria? He says, I have a transaction. So he was going to connect to Lufthansa. I was going to do the good old BA. Was it BA then? No, British Caledonian.
Oh, was that far back?
Oh yeah, that way back. So we exchanged cards. That was it. I was sitting in my office on Wednesday morning, the week after. The phone rings. And the man says, do you remember meeting so at Narita? I said, yes. Are you in Nigeria for real? He says, I'm here. Oh, good. Then I can buy you a drink at my club, Ikoyi Club. So I took him there. Didn't know what transaction I'd come here for. Took him there. And as we were having that drink, he said to me, I need a lawyer. I said, you need a lawyer?
One is sitting in front of you.
I am he. He says, you're a lawyer. I said, well, didn't you read the card I gave you? He said, I didn't read it. Okay. What is your problem? He says, he has a consignment of crude which has been embargoed here in Nigeria, and he's here to free it. He was speaking Greek as far as I was concerned. So I said, so what do you want a lawyer for? He says, well, I don't know whether a lawyer can tell me what to do, who to see, how to get it freed. So I said, well, I know the lawyer for you. I thought it was a maritime issue. I didn't know it was an upstream issue. So I took him to my maritime lawyer friend, who after listening to it said, so this is right down your alley. He says, it's corporate work. I said, corporate work? Yeah. So we sat down together and we
dissected
the issues, and we decided that we would do it together, solve the man's problem. And we did. So in the course of now getting to sort out the problem, oil and gas rules were coming in. And I said, they're regular rules. They're commercial. In fact, because the oil had left the flange, it had become a commodity like any other commodity.
That's right.
So it was not anything highfalutin. So That man paid me very good money. He did not negotiate because I leaned on my older friend to tell me how much to charge. If I tell you now, it won't buy a pair of shoes for you.
At that time.
But he paid handsomely. And he said, well, you know, if you want to be a lawyer in this area, I will make some introductions. And he made some introductions in the UK. And that was it. I joined the section on energy resources of the IBA. I was already a member of the IBA, but I was just in the general committee. I joined the oil and natural resources section, and that was it. I now met colleagues who are in the area, and one thing led to another.
Beautiful. I mean, given your how busy you are and all that, how sitting in boards, different boards, how do you still find time to look at new areas of law?
I am a very restless person. I like to be seen as looking, even if I'm not looking. I've done a few other things that we have not mentioned this time. I led the establishment of an environmental law group for the bar in Nigeria. Because if an issue comes up, it will die unless it actually has validity. The moment environment became a concern for the whole world, it was not in 1972. The moment the environment became a concern for the whole world, and it did not die by 1975, I knew it was going to be a topic. And I engineered the fusion of the department of the Committee of Environment with the Committee on Oil and Gas at the bar, because I know that they are twin, and they are the sinusoid for now, although environment is much bigger than that. So I've got a thing for looking for new play. I've got a thing for it. Even politically, I've got a thing for new play. So
So take us through some of those groundbreaking transactions. Either with AELEX first, or
with Irving and Bonner. With Irving and Bonner, we scored a first in becoming the first Nigerian law firm to act for the International Banking Group in the Oso Condensate project, which nobody did. That was
huge.
It was massive. It was when we signed the agreements in Washington D.C. There were 68 lawyers in the room. 68.
Awesome.
And it was a groundbreaking thing because there was the first real attempt by an oil major to finance a Nigerian project, not from its wallet, but from the international banking world.
That project was
big. So that would be one of my landmarks. The LNG, Nigerian LNG project, I had a cameo role in there. It was also a similar kind of configuration. I've done more A&D work, acquisition and divestiture work, in energy than any other type of work, i.e. Exxon wants to sell, Shell wants to divest. I've done more of that than anything else. Again, with specialism, in that kind of activity, you have perhaps 8 disciplines of law playing fully. So I have not done the taxation aspect of it. I have not done the banking aspect of it. I have not done the insurance aspect of it. I have not done the construction aspect of it. But I've been inside the same transaction. And we could have done all of that inside AELEX. So that's again what validates the decision to grow a bigger firm, get more specialisms under the roof, and proceed like that.
What's the size of AELEX now? How many lawyers do you have here?
AELEX is a very interesting animal. The last time I checked, the last time I checked, I said there are 60 lawyers here and 11 partners.
What was that singular moment that you realized that this was the life that you wanted to live? You did mention, talk about your admission coming, but I mean, it gets to a point where you're like, oh, okay, this law is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Nobody has ever asked me that question before. Because I honestly don't know the answer. Let me tell you why I don't know the answer. When I came back from Sokoto, it couldn't have been 1 month when the Supreme Court was going to deliver the verdict in the Awogbade murder case. I don't know whether you are familiar with that. Oh my God, that is a landmark criminal law decision that the Supreme Court handed down. Sir Dali Alexander was the Chief Justice of Nigeria at the time. And I had just come into the firm. And he said, oh yeah, let's go, because we were representing the, what do you call it, accused. It had gone from High Court to Court of Appeal, end of the Supreme Court. Chief Awogbade was a very highly influential, if you listen to a business of Biasoni, you will hear his name every time. He was a very highly influential businessman in Nigeria, in Lagos, and was particularly well-heeled in land matters. And he must have approached a particular land interest that he wanted to acquire, and they had said no. And the conflict was such that he won't back down, and they won't back down. My son, combination of circumstances, the landowner died of gunshot wounds. And our client's alibi was that at the time that was happening, I was having a naming ceremony in my house. It couldn't have been me that shot him. Society had condemned him that he did. Yes. And it took one witness to unravel the entire thing. And the justice system just opened up in my eyes like that. Like, imagine from the magistrate court up to the Supreme Court. And the guy had all the resources. I mean, can you imagine hiring a firm like ours to defend him? He had all the resources. And you could have thought that if it was the kind of society we had now, he could have brought his way to justice. When he was sentenced to death, because he was semi-literate, he asked my senior, what did they say? He repeated to him that you have been sentenced to death. He couldn't believe his ears. He couldn't believe his eyes.
Where was this one witness all this while?
The one witness was there, but the Supreme Court was the one that turned its verdict on the evidence of that one witness. What had happened? Very simple. They asked the witness, did you see him pointing the gun? He said, no, I didn't see him pointing the gun. But after he shot and was running away, I saw him. So the contemporaneity of shooting and running. You know, a man shoots, runs. He doesn't want to be found on the spot. The courts below had said, so what time of day was this? And it was dark. And they had turned their verdicts on, how could you make out the silhouette of a man at that hour of the day? And they parked that issue, and that evidence became inconsequential. And the state prosecution sat on it and said, we will see this to the end. And the Supreme Court was persuaded that this witness told the truth to the court of first instance, and he made up, because he described what he saw in full. So that was a very, very seminal moment, not signal, seminal for me, that this law, there's something in it. I'd been doing it for 9 games before for a salary. But that day, the height to which people can rise will never pass the law if society agrees that that is the way it should be.
If you were to live your life all over again, will you still be alive?
I am exceptional in my generation. I have practiced law for 44 years, not one day's break. Many people go, well, I gave thought to a second profession.
Media has, well, it's
I wanted to go into an advertising company and write copy. When I came to 30 years at the bar, I said, maybe I should change.
It's your love for the word, for wordplay and everything. Because that's a skill set that is important, even for drafting and everything.
I wanted to go and write copy.
I would have been interested.
But life got more interesting on the other side too. So,
how do you spend time outside of work? It's hard to work 44 years and then. What are the distractions outside of art?
One of the greatest fortunes of my life was I discovered a game called golf.
Oh yes.
I discovered golf over 30 years ago.
What's your handicap now?
I still play off a gentleman's 15.
Okay, well, I like the way you say that. I don't play. I've tried to play. I just haven't been able to get into it.
No, you haven't tried. Well, about golf, you must know.
I have been dismissed like that.
If 100 people try to start, only 10 will play.
I'm one of those 90.
But I don't see why you should be. You should be inside the 10.
I have gotten that answer so many times that you have to play golf. I have friends who will say to me, "Oh no, until you join us in golf, let's not talk."
No, it's a beautiful sport, and perhaps the most important thing I've learned is that golf is actually richer than life. When you play, you know. Golf is richer than life.
Lessons for another day.
Golf is richer than life.
So that's your major distraction.
I'm a churchman. I am an Anglican, and I have 3 churches that I play roles in. I don't have a number one before my faith. My faith is my number one. My family and golf struggle for positions because my wife thinks it's probably golf before me. And then there's my profession. So in between, amongst those 3 categories, life is pretty well spent. It's gone. Time is gone.
I haven't seen any avid golfer who doesn't describe golf in the most, amazing terms like you have. You know how you describe golf? If you were to describe law in profession in some, how would you describe it? With your practice, with all the challenges and everything. I just want you to encapsulate it.
I think good lawyers are some of the most knowledgeable human beings on earth. There's no sphere of human endeavor from which we're excluded. None. And to the extent that there's always another lawyer on the other side, usually. You have to be up and doing. Oh, I can see only one doctor for the whole of my life. But when I am making a choice of a lawyer, I must remember that the other side will also have a lawyer. So I can't make a poor choice if I want. Now that puts the lawyer on his toes all the time. And that's why we're always reading. That's why we're always finding out what's going on. Because you have to beat someone. You have to top someone. You have to trump someone. Even in a commercial transaction. Because you have to be able to slice and dice such that your client's point of view will prevail. So that you yourself will have a feel-good factor that you have made a contribution of which a check is signed. So I think it's perhaps one of the greatest professions one can be in. It elevates you because you are actually solving problems. You are actually solving problems. And so when I was growing up, when you saw the way a lawyer was greeted in public, all those things like D-law, it's now that it is almost meaningless. D-law means that is the law on
personified.
Yes, on 2 legs. So it is not giving. You don't salute herbalists like that. I mean, they don't do that. Or do they do that?
No, they don't. Maybe it's certain societies.
So I think that it is one of the greatest professions one can belong to. Like you say, it is something you can do until you die.
I think that would be a good point to bring this to a wrap. And
thank you very much.
Just to thank you also for your time. And there you have it, sadly. But talking to this bigwig, Soji Awogbade, has just been so inspiring. Inspiring because hard work really does pay. And when you find a man who loves his job, you just want to sit with him and share all his life experiences. And he loves his law just the way he loves his golf. Both of them are life to him. Makes you want to play golf, yes? All right, that's our show for today. And until we come your way again, my name is Richard Mofe Damijo, and I'm out.
Yeah. We're making great moves, big moves. Yeah. Pam, pam, pam. I'm a lawyer. I love the practice. My daily moves, nothing but magic. I'm a lawyer, but I don't even go to court. My daily moves, nothing but magic. Nothing but magic. Listen, a lawyer can be creative.